Okay, so I got 2 coats of finish down from yesterday's work. Sufficiently dry. Now I need to run the buffing machine and make it nice and smooth. Vacuum and tack cloth it clean so there's no dust. I started running, typically when you buff between coats, you put these 150 grit Velcro tabs on the back of a 16-inch or whatever size your machine is. Brown pad. The brown pad is abrasive. That does mild sanding, and this does more of the work. But these boards, those lines, are catching those edges. So if I were to go ahead and buff the entire place with this indiscriminately without checking my pad, has the potential of putting very bad swirls throughout the whole job, and could even require that you sand the job over again. So I checked that a few seconds into it, see how it was doing. Not doing well. Now, the alternative to that, I sanded all of the floor with 80 grit screens on my buffing machine with no problem. So my alternative to that is to find, and that's a new one. That's new because it's bright red and it's obviously new. Is to find an old worn screen that doesn't have debris in it, like that. That's debris in it. An old screen that's kind of floppy. This one seems perfect. That's 100 grit. But as floppy as that is, that means it's well worn. Here's a good candidate. No, that's got the same stuff as the other one. All right. I'm liking this 100 grit the best. Yeah, that's... A lot of the abrasives have been worn off or used up on it, so I'm going to use this to buff the floor. And it won't catch the board lines. The reason the other pads were catching board lines is because they're individual pieces. That's one whole thing. All right, I can't do this with one hand. All right, let's buff this. Let's buff this. Center that. Bingo. Find a comfortable place at this. Usually right where your belt would tighten up, right where your belt would go is where you want the handle of this thing. Because actually that's right where you lean on it. When you want to do aggressive sanding, is you lean right at the belt line. Perfect. Sliding right over the top of them. So that's it. You want to make some dust. Not too crazy. We're only making it smooth. You don't want to take your finish off. I started in an out-of-the-way area. Never starting the front door or the middle of the room or someplace that's going to be real obvious, because sometimes you have a problem with the buffing machine when you start it and something weird happens, and then you got to fix it. You rather fix it where a piece of furniture is going than right in the middle of the doorway or the middle of the room where nothing may go. So whenever you're not sure about something, always start in an unnoticeable place. All right, let's get this buffed. This isn't too exciting. Fix the wire. Get that out of the way. Front door, give a little extra attention because debris always blows in under doors from wind movement. There we go, that's all sanded nice. If this project had stain on it, I would probably, because of these ridges, I would probably just use the brown pad. Just use the brown pad and sacrifice smoothness a little bit for ruining the job. Because if you had a darker stain on this and then you start running the buffing machine, those board ends are going to become white. And that's not a fun touch-up. I've had to go to the craft store. I've had to go to the craft store and get markers and color all of those lines in with the same color permanent marker, and that's not fun. Definitely not fun, kneeling down, coloring every board line. You got to be careful because when you step back, that's noticeable. And it's like, who used the magic marker on my floors? So, always with the buffing machine. This is a crucial part of the job that gets taken for granted because you feel like you're done with the whole job. I just have to buff it and coat it, and that's where you can get in trouble and ruin all of your previous work and cost you a lot of money and a lot of heartache and a lot of swear words. But this floor is very safe here because it's natural with a non-ambering finish, and this pine wood does not have a lot of tannin in it. Tannin is, it's like the brown color that's in the wood. I don't really know what it is, but I know what it's called. Tannin, I don't know how to spell it either. T-A-N-N-I-N. But the tannin in the wood, if you're using an ambering finish, that will drag the tannins out and make a really difficult repair. So there's a lot of ways with the buffing machine and this last phase of the job to make a lot of problems for yourself. And I still do them. And I know about them. But they happen, even to the most careful person. For 1 second or whatever, buffing machine, the pad folds over, hits a floor grate, rips the screen. Then you go swirling out into the room for a second. And you're like, oh my God, I scratched the floor. You can tell by the noise the buffing machine makes. This sounds like it's not grabbing as much over here, whereas the areas that haven't been makes more of a noise, and you could feel it grabbing. Now it's sliding, now it's grabbing. And you go halfway over what you did before. It's always halfway over what you did before. Halfway over. Plus, this is a very rustic job, so some imperfections probably go unnoticed. But you know they're there, and you know they're avoidable. So just be the same careful everywhere. There it is. We're buffed. All right. The most important thing, everything's important, but you definitely ruin the job if you don't vacuum well. So, vacuuming, yeah, it's important. Vacuum everything nice, perfect. Get the creases and crevices. I did that already. Here's the important part. Brush with the grain, halfway over what you've done before. Your wire's behind you. You don't even want to, ideally you don't walk back into the room. You never step on what you vacuumed again until you put finish on it. So you vacuum methodically, halfway over each area. I don't know how many helpers I show this to. Then I come back in and they're like this. And I tell them, stop, go back in the corner, and start and do it exactly like this. I don't do it this way because I do it this way because it works. You know it's clean, and you know you're done. And you haven't stepped on it again. You're not doing this by sight. You're doing this by method. Doesn't matter if you can see the dust or not. It's there. And you just do your method. Keep doing it. If you do it side to side, what that does is it pulls the dirt out of the line and then throws it up on the board, leaving it there. So if you vacuum like that because you have to, you've got to be aware of that. And give it another cursory check just to make sure. Because it does. It pulls crud and dust out of the lines, throws it up on the floor, and then you wonder, why is this floor so dirty? Because you pulled all the dust out of the board lines and threw it up on the face. Yeah, not so exciting, very tedious, especially in a 3,000 or 4,000 square foot house, but if you could trust the guys, you put 1 or 2 guys with vacuums on their backs and have them vacuum meticulously. And if it's your final coat and your final buffing, you got to even vacuum the walls, windowsills, everything. Get rid of every evidence of dust that you've made in the house. Because floormen, we have a bad rep for making dust. Yeah, we make dust, but we also clean up our dust. Too many painters do sheetrock work, and you could write your name in the bureau in the dust 3 or 4 rooms away. They think just closing the door is sufficient. That's really, really fine sheetrock dust. Goes much farther than any of our wood flooring dust. So I could understand why people think we're going to make a dusty mess, but if you have somebody that's any bit professional, he's not going to leave dust around for you to find. Then there's some people that are just so, they already know beforehand. They're convinced, and then they still tell people how much dust there was. And when you speak to them, they'll say, "Oh, everything was great, but I did find a little dust." Oh, okay. What do you call by a little bit? You found a little. You ran your finger over a windowsill in the very corner, and you found something. I mean, certain responsibility has to be taken by the homeowner also. You got guys coming in to do work. If you have a cleaning service or a maid, they should follow us up. We're not the maids, even though I try to do as good a cleaning as a maid would, many times better. I don't even want to get on that. All the products that maids throw on floors, they throw products on floors that are just ruin people's homes. That's a whole nother video. But anyways, yeah, dust. Dust, another source of problem with customers and ruining your job. But I just clean up my dust because you could have the radio playing and you just do it. And you run a towel over flat surfaces. You use a duster, feather duster. All right, enough vacuuming. I'll show you the finish in a minute. Okay, let's put the finish down. This is the finish I'll be using. This is basically a commercial brand of Duraseal water-based finish, non-ambering, 5-gallon bucket. All right, so there's my applicator. That's not typical, leaving your applicator in the bucket of finish. The applicator that I like to use, lots of different opinions on this. I use it because it's easy to control, and in most cases I need very little brush work. I could get into all types of corners and everything with this. So it's a foam pad on a plastic handle. It's a generic brand. Actually, it says the name on it. What is it? Duraco 10-inch. I think they call these cut-in pads. So the reason you don't keep your mop in the finish, or you don't put your mop in the finish and dip from it, is because you contaminate the whole bucket. But I'll show you in a second why I have to keep it in the bucket. And it's pretty obvious. This finish is, let's just call it $40 a gallon, because just about everything these days is $40 to $50 a gallon. So $40 a gallon, and there's huge board lines, spaces between the board lines. There's huge board lines. And I don't want to put, if you poured this on the floor and then mopped it, I don't know what percentage would stay on the top of the floor and what would go into the board lines. 60%. So you're putting $11 worth of finish where it's supposed to be, $12 worth of finish where it's supposed to be, and the rest of it's falling into the boards. Great, you scrape the pad off. And of course I got some big funny, this is plastic after all, so you do get these plastic, sheets inside the polyurethane tub. And that's why we use a strainer. When we pour into gallon buckets, you use a strainer. And you don't keep those in there. All right. So you don't want the applicator as wet as this is, but I'm going to start in near the corner. Not in the corner because I wouldn't be able to spread it out, but here we go, near the corner. Scrape some of it off. Boom, put it down, work it in. In this case, it's the exact same pine molding. I could bump into it. I already put a coat of finish on it there we go. The mop is sliding, beautiful. It's smooth, it's not grabbing. That's how you know. That's how you know that you buffed well and you cleaned well, because the mop slides like it's on glass. And you'd go board by board. It's important to do that because sometimes you'll get streaks if you don't, or you'll leave heavy spots, and going board by board gives me the best results. It's not the rule. There's times where you want to, well, let me show you the other way of doing it. The other way of doing it is you'd put a line of finish here, like this, put a line of finish like that, then you go like this, and then back, and this, and you drag back, and this, and you drag back, and this, and you drag back, like that, and you drag back. Guess what you're doing? Halfway over where you did before. And it's a good idea to work it in nice, leave it wet, but not ridiculous where you could have inconsistencies. You just put it on. It's better to put more thin coats than to try to be labor cheap and put heavy coats. Say, oh, I'm just going to put one heavy coat. Yeah, then it turns out and looks like crap. 2 thin coats will always look better than 1 heavy coat. Well, that's not a rule either. But if you could do it really well, and time doesn't allow, or for whatever reason you have to put one considered kind of heavy coat, well, you just spend more time putting it on, looking into the light source, making sure you don't leave any drips or globs. It's okay to drag backwards with it. I'm being kind of casual now. I should be showing. And I'm working with, trying to watch the camera. I have it clipped to my t-shirt. I have to lean over for it to actually have the work in frame. I try to do these videos while I'm working, and it's more that I'm working and making a video versus making a video and showing a tutorial. So there's a trade-off. Do the best I can because I got to get work done. So there we go. Now I'm committed to the way that I started here. And this is how you do the other method when you don't go board by board. So I got to finish this line doing that method. I'm putting 2 coats anyway, so the second coat will fix any variations or, streaking or missed spots. That's why 2 coats are always better after you buff. I don't care how careful you are. You miss a spot, then you got to go back and get it. Then you can see your touch up. Better to just buff and put 2 coats. Guys that think they're slick or want to be cheap, they buff and put 1 coat. Guarantee you I'll walk around and find a missed spot or something, or a reason why 2 coats would have been better. All right, let me get this painted because I can't do it with one hand.